My name's Dan Kelsall, and as it says on that slide, I'm a co-founder and creative director of Offended. And we're basically a creative house that refuses to do any dry, boring, vanilla shite marketing, basically. And today I'm going to be talking to you about pissing people off, because it's something that I've been incredibly good at all my life. And it's also something nowadays that I make money out of. So yeah, if only my school teachers could see me now. So basically, I mean, quick warning, I do swear a lot. If you've got a problem with that, then you'll just have to put your fingers in your ears for 10 minutes. Swear words are just words made up of the same letters, morphemes and sounds as other words. So yeah, that's my opinion on the matter. I guess one of the things today that we're gonna kind of talk about is risky marketing, and kind of why that's so important, particularly for small businesses and new brands, and why it's important to have to take a stand and say something different, and not just sit on the fence and blend into the rest of the vanilla dross that's out there. So your marketing's probably shit, right? And I know this because most marketing is shit. Most companies are still hanging on to things like trends or tokenism. That's why you'll see so many people with pride logos at the minute, because not LGBT community, because they think it's the thing to do, because everybody else is doing it, the competitors are doing it. That's how they think the best way to market themselves is. And the fact of the matter is that's because they haven't really got any decent ideas, right? So they jump on bandwagons, they panic, can't think of anything good to do. So they think, right, fuck it, let's do the same naff thing as everybody else. And in the end, it doesn't really do anything for them, right? And the longer you spend doing marketing that is pointless and doesn't really do anything for them, the more of a loss-making exercise it becomes for the business. And I get it. I get why people do it. It's generally because they're scared, right? It's fear holding people back, right? You're scared of offending people. That's why we're called Offended. You're scared of your brand getting a bad rep. Completely get that and understand that. You're scared of losing and putting off customers, right? Which again, if you say something different and you take a stand, there is a real danger of that happening. But I'm going to kind of explain to you why that's okay. So we've got to think about where that fear comes from, right? So, and the thing is, it's making your marketing less impactful, right? It's stopping you doing anything different. But there's something that's even worse than that, right? And I get it, and I get why people are scared. I do, because if you make X decision and you lose this client, then you're going to have to sack little Jimmy in accounts, right? Who's got 6 kids to feed, and they're all going to starve to death. And I get that, right? I get that. It's the fear every business owner has. But it's the fear every marketer has. You don't want to lose your job. You don't want to get sacked. But the problem with that, right, is it's making not only is it making your marketing less impactful, it's causing something that I think is a marketer's worst nightmare, right? It's causing indifference, right? Yeah, your target audience is becoming indifferent towards you. And there is nothing worse for a brand, particularly if you're new, than people not giving a shit about you, or not giving a shit about what you've got to say, because as a result of that, they're going to ignore you, right? Basically, your brand's in purgatory, right? You're floating around completely fucking ignored. And there's a problem here, right? So if your target audience are indifferent towards your brand, they don't care what you have to say, right? They don't look out for your content and ads. And obviously, as a result of that, they're not going to buy from you, are they? Right? And at the end of the day, regardless of what a lot of fluffy marketers will tell you, the only thing and the only purpose of marketing really is to get more people to buy from you. Otherwise, why the fuck are you doing it? You're not doing it to become famous. You're doing it so that you can sell more products, right? Or sell more of your service, whatever it might be. But the thing is most people are barely poking their head above the parapet, because they don't want to they don't want to take those risks. And I get it, we're conditioned not to take those risks, right? Society, we're kind of brought up in a society that's built by old white men, with certain societal constructs that tell us that we shouldn't do stuff, we shouldn't think outside the box, we shouldn't have an opinion, we shouldn't swear because it's not professional. And to be honest, that's all bollocks. And the thing is, nowadays people are becoming blind to the ways that we market our businesses, right? You've kind of got to think about it. It's especially true for small businesses and new brands and startups, because you don't exist yet. You don't exist. And if all you're going to do is come to the table and say the same shit as everybody else, right, and have the same voice because you don't want to risk saying anything different, you're just going to blend into the noise, and you're always going to be unknown, you know, and that's kind of just the nature of it. But the thing is, like, adverts are everywhere, right? This is why we're becoming ad blind, right? You know, you walk down the street, got billboards everywhere, ads at bus stops, right? All over the place. You watch telly, ads, YouTube, ads, Spotify, if you're too fucking cheap to pay for it, ads, right? Social media, every other post is an ad nowadays. There's so much of it that we've conditioned ourselves to ignore most of it, especially stuff that doesn't relate to us, especially the stuff that's not different in any way, shape or form, and especially the stuff that just, you know, it's the same dross or the same voices that you've heard a million times before. It's exactly the same for content, right? So if you're doing organic content marketing, which seems to be the holy grail nowadays, you know, and everyone thinks every man and his dog thinks they have to do it. It's the same, you know, you've got business blogs, shite, entrepreneurs doing vlogs, shite, motivational quotes all over the place, most of them made up, shite. And, you know, made up stories about CEOs, you know, who were once homeless lepers, and now they've become really successful, blah, 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 shite, right? This is kind of one of the problems, because now more than ever before, because if you need to get people to stop walking, stop scrolling, you know, kind of pause that show, that Love Island they're watching with, you know, some Muppet oiling up his pecs. Because if you don't, why would anyone ever stop and read your ad, right? Or watch your ad? Why, in between the hilarious memes, cat videos, and six packs, why the fuck would anybody stop to read about your innovative, disruptive software that you want them to use, right? And why, if your software is so innovative and disruptive, is your marketing as boring as a weekend bird watching with Andy Murray's mum, right? Surely your marketing has to be as disruptive as your product is. And if you've got a boring product, you know, your marketing has to be even more impactful. Otherwise, people will buy other boring products instead, right? But how do we do it, right? So how are you gonna take that leap, right, into the world of impactful, risky, ballsy marketing? Because it is not an easy thing to do. It is not naturally something we do as people, especially if you are naturally introverted. It's you know, saying something different and having a voice that and putting yourself out there to be potentially criticised is not a natural thing to do. So the first thing, this is what I always tell people to say, is you've got to say the things your audience want to say but don't, because this is such an important part, right? You've got to think about kind of the natural kind of way we are as human beings. Is we look up to people that are bolder than us, and we all have things in our head that we wish we could say, right? But we don't say it because it's too much of a risk, or we might embarrass ourselves, or we might get criticised, or, you know, we might lose our job, or whatever the fuck it might be. So naturally, when we see someone say the things that we want to say, we gravitate towards them. That's why I guess why people follow influencers on social media. Maybe that's why there are some celebrities that are celebrities in the first place, is because they're the version of yourself that you wish you could be. And it's the same for brands. If you can craft a voice, right, and you can say the things that your audience wants to say, what you'll do is relate to them, right? That relating to them will automatically build respect. And when you've built their admiration and respect, what generally happens from that point is they're going to be more likely to buy from you, right? It's not rocket science. This is the thing with a lot of marketers overcomplicate marketing, because if you overcomplicate something, you can make money from it. That's the only reason. Marketing's not complicated. A lot of the fundamentals of marketing, of good marketing, of impactful marketing, haven't really changed since the 50s, since the era of the madmen, right? I'm not saying that's a great era. You know, it's full of fucking racism, sexism, and pissheads. Nowadays, it's just full of pissheads. But the fact of the matter is, things haven't really changed. The way that we can get through to people, the way that we can relate to people, and the way that we can get messages across it has been exactly the same. And the reality is marketing is actually, whether you like it or not, is manipulation, right? You are generally manipulating people into buying products, more often than not, products that they don't actually need. That's the sad thing of marketing, but you need to become comfortable with that. And it's just kind of getting to that point where you're like, right, okay, I'm comfortable with saying the things that my target audience want to say, but then, and it is as simple as that. The second point is get off the fucking fence. This is incredibly important, right? The fact of the matter is, right, even as a brand, you need to have an opinion, right? You can't sit on the fence. If you sit on the fence, you're ignored. Nobody ever looked up there. He just sat in the middle of the fence, just not really having an opinion. You think about it, and you look at like the big brands like Nike. Think about Nike backing Colin Kaepernick, right? Regardless of what happened there, they lost a load of old, well, not necessarily old, but white kind of redneck customers that were burning Nike gear in the street. And yet they had them up probably the most profitable year, I think was 20 years, something daft. And you look at kind of the impact of that on a big brand like Nike and the potential risk of Nike actually having an opinion backing and backing someone, backing an underdog, that is massive. And yet small brands don't tend to do it. They don't tend to do it. But the fact of the matter is, you're never going to appeal to everybody, right? You're never going to sell to everybody. So why are you trying to craft a message, and why are you trying to everybody? It's daft. And this is the other point as well. It's never as risky as you think it is, right? So, I tend to always tell the team here that generally people in the right, because they are. It's the reason people are still shopping at H&M after they put a cheeky monkey t-shirt on a young black lad. Big mistake. Everyone's forgotten about it now, because the fact of the matter is, somebody goes, right, H&M are dickheads, but then they go into H&M a few weeks later, they see a dress they like, and it's all forgotten about. It's the same reason that people are still buying that dickhead Chris Brown's music after he, tap dance on Rihanna's head. Again, people like a song, suddenly they've forgotten about it, right? And it's probably the reason that Brewdog, despite all the shit in the news recently about them, will probably come out of this relatively unscathed, regardless of whether the CEO has to step down or whatever. They will probably actually come out of it okay. And that's because people forget. People are very self-centered. The market's very self-centered. And when big brands make mistakes, they're forgotten about. So if you're a small brand, right, and you make a mistake, it's going to be forgotten about even quicker, right? Because number one, nobody really knows who you are. So the people that you offended, yeah, they make a lot of noise, but generally the people you offended, there's not that many of them. You'll be surprised how quickly things blow over. And I'm not saying, you should be making really big errors. I'm not saying go out there and start banging out some racist messaging in your marketing, because if you do that, you're a dickhead. But what I am saying is that don't worry so much about, because the risks that you think are risk probably aren't as risky as you think they are. They're probably not going to actually cause you that many problems. And if you release a piece of content that people don't like or that people kick off about, generally they'll, the next time you release something good, they've already forgotten about the piece of shit that you released, a couple of weeks ago. There's been a few times where I've gotten really hairy situations with content I've released. And guess what? If you ask my target, you ask my customers now, my clients, my audience, nobody will remember it. It's happened plenty of times. So there's one thing though. There's one thing that you need to get very, very used to if you're going to market yourself or your brand in this way, right? If you're going to take risks, and I don't care whether those are big risks or whether they're baby steps, it doesn't really matter. If you're going to do this, you need to get used to doing one thing, and that's the fact you're going to piss some people off, right? And you might even piss some of your target audience off. But the fact of the matter is, you're never going to sell to all of your target audience either. You're not there to please everybody. If you want to build a brand quickly nowadays and stand out, amongst all the dross that's out there, all the shite that we see in our feeds, against all the crappy ads, you really need to get used to the fact that as a byproduct of doing good, impactful, risky marketing, you might well offend people. And, you know, not only is that okay, right? Because if you take a stand, if you say something different, if you're the voice your target audience wish they had, not only is it okay if you offend people, actually, guys, it's why you'll win. It's why you'll come out on top. So yeah, and that's pretty much all I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I'll rabbit it on there. But if there's any questions, leave in the box, and I will answer them in a second.
Nice one, Dan. Thank you very much. Really, really interesting. There's been a couple of questions that's come in, so if you're ready to answer them, the first one that came in has been, what has been your most successful campaign yourself?
Do you mean personally or for a client?
I think personally or through the company.
Good question, really. I mean, we've got a campaign that's up for, so we've got, there's a client called Entain who own Ladbrokes, and we did a pretty impactful campaign for them for Pride, but not one of your fucking tokenism bullshit campaigns. It was speaking from the kind of perspective of the LGBT community, and it was a poem written about the hardships that they've been through and about how much they've been oppressed, and without the bold people within the LGBT community having a voice and saying something different and standing up and saying, "Nah, fuck you, this is who I am, regardless of what you think." Without those people, we wouldn't have progressed and moved on as a society, and our attitudes towards that wouldn't have progressed. And we did that and did a video, and I'm not a big believer in awards. I think generally awards are bollocks, and you have to just go and pay for awards and nonsense. And to put through it for 4 awards that we haven't paid for, so genuine awards. And I think that's as in terms of impact, for us to get that opportunity for a big brand, that's certainly my favorite campaign. But it's actually nice to see a big brand getting behind something like that and actually having a voice, and not just kind of, we do a Pride logo and that's it. And you don't want to say it's something too risky, because we might piss off the old blokes who are homophobic who buy off us. And it's nice to see big brands taking that risk.
I can see, been seeing a lot of that over the past couple of weeks or so. And on the flip side of that, what's been a sort of risky campaign you've seen that has failed terribly, and why did it fail?
We don't. Well, fucking hell. I mean, we've done plenty. We fucked up a lot. We really fucked up a lot, but I think that's kind of part and parcel of it. You just got to be careful how you go. One thing I say is some of the campaigns that try to use sexual elements in them, right? So to innuendos and stuff. We've done a lot of. We've done quite a few brands with dick jokes in there and sex jokes, and that is a risky strategy, because there's a lot of prudes out there, and there's a lot of people don't appreciate it. And we once did a campaign for a smaller brand, just an app company, where they're a recruitment app. So we did a video called the Karma Recruiter. And it was basically just them in latex, taking the piss out of job boards, but getting in really, strange positions. And to the point where it ended up blowing up on Facebook, and there's a big kickoff, and to the point where they got messaged by the head of recruitment at Kellogg's, calling them disgusting and saying they'll never work with them ever again. But then, funnily enough, it wasn't Kellogg's, it was Nestle. But then, funnily enough, Nestle said that, but then Ferrero Rocher got in touch and said, "Oh, we loved it." So there you go then. Yeah, you never know.
Okay, we've got time for one quick question before I let you go, Dan. So the question came in from Lisa Turner saying, have your clients ever tried to water what you've done for them down? And what was your response?
Yeah, repeatedly. I mean, that's always going to be the case, right? Whenever you come to offended, see, people think that we set out to offend people, and that's not the case. It's just that you might offend people as a byproduct of doing risky marketing. That's why we call offended. But every time a client comes to us, most of the clients who come to us think that they want risky marketing, and then the stuff that we present to them in the first place, they go, "Oh, fuck that, I'm not doing that." So yeah, we always have to walk stuff down. But I always say to people, like, getting ballsy with your marketing is all about baby steps. It's about taking a little step at a time, seeing what the impact is, analysing it, measuring that, and then obviously acting on whatever those results are, and kind of pushing yourself that little bit forward. The amount of clients that come to us, and we start off with really, really quite bland vanilla stuff, you know, a little bit riskier than they normally try. And then you look at them in 6 months' time, and it's like, fucking hell, like look at what they're doing now. It's just getting used to it. It's getting comfortable with it. It's something that you have to learn to do. I wasn't always like this. I wasn't always, you know. Nowadays, I'm not even sure where the line is anymore. Like I've done too much. I'm not really sure what's acceptable anymore. So luckily I've got a team that reins in and goes, no, you can't do that. But yeah, everybody waters it down at first.